All right, so I've got Tommy here with me. And for today's segment, let's talk about some more outstanding free agency market topics. And today I want to talk about the free agents with caveats, guys who aren't straight cut and clean unrestricted free agents, but who have unique stipulations to their contract that may keep them under contract or make them a free agent. So let's dive into some of those names to see whether some of them may actually hit the market. And if they do, how realistic it would be for the Lakers to get them. So, oh, hi, by the way, Tommy. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, you ready to do this? I'm good.
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with the non guaranteed guys. Are you ready for this list of non guaranteed guys? They typically have dates that span from like the end of June to maybe August, and some also have like a late January date for the team to either fully guarantee them or just let them loose entirely. Are you ready for this exciting list?
Oh, yes.
All right, here we go. Non guaranteed guys. I'm going to list them out and then you tell me any guys who interest you and how realistic you think it'll be for the Lakers to get them. Number one, KJ Martin, Utah Jazz. $8 million non guaranteed, fully guaranteed on January 26th. So if Utah has plans to take in guys with their cap space and get assets, they might just let KJ Martin loose. Number two, Jock Landale, Houston Rockets. Non guaranteed $8 million. I believe the guarantee date is somewhere during the summer, June or July. Next up, a guy we've talked about in the past, Nick Richards, $5 million. So I guess you don't have to talk about Nick Richards because we've talked about him before. But yeah, Nick Richards, non guaranteed $5 million with the Phoenix Suns. Depending on what direction they go, if they decide to blow things up, he may not be part of their plans. Um, Next guy, Cody Martin. I believe he's on the Suns as well. Non guaranteed $8.6 million. He was traded from Charlotte to the Suns. And yeah, he could be an unrestricted free agent. I don't even know what number I'm on. I'm one, two, number 4, 5, Josh Okogie, non-guaranteed $7.7 million. I believe he went from the Suns to the Charlotte Hornets in that Cody Martin deal. And then lastly, Duop Reith, Portland Trailblazers, $2.2 million non-guaranteed, guaranteed on August 1. So I'll run through that list one more time. KJ Martin, Jock Landale, Cody Martin, Josh Okogie, Duop Reith. We already know you're interested in Nick Richards, so I'll leave him out. So KJ, Jock, Cody, Josh Okogie, Duop Reith. Anyone of those interest you, and how realistic do you think it is for the Lakers to get them? I actually think they're very realistic. That's why they're on these non-guaranteed deals, but take it away.
Yeah, so other than Nick Richards, Jock Landale stands out. I mean, obviously, because our need for bigs is so desperate. I think, he's one of these Australian, I can't remember if he's from Australia or New Zealand, but he's from that area of the world. And he's one of these like more old school, like tough centers. I've liked him in the limited bursts that we've seen him. I think he could make an impact on, depending on the contract. And then KJ Martin, I feel like he is a guy who, again, I think we would have to make some moves if we wanted to get him because, or he would be sort of like a stopgap if we did make moves because I think like he sort of is at a position where we have a lot of bodies currently. But one of the things that has stood out, if people have been sort of following the playoffs and obviously watched this Lakers series this year, is the level of athleticism and conditioning. And we've talked about the physicality, but it's really
Mm-hmm.
the athleticism and conditioning as well. I mean, these guys are playing intense games, and you're seeing like the teams that are losing are getting burned in those categories. I mean, even the Knicks, their bigs are gassed and their bigs are elite. I mean, like Karl Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson are like pretty perfect complements to one another in terms of what they can do. And pretty good in terms of being modern bigs. And I mean, these guys are just like totally spent at the end of these games. And that's not a knock on them. It's just like that's the way the league is heading. And KJ Martin, I think, is so athletic that he's just like, he's a guy that we talked about 2 years ago, I think. And it just feels like he's waiting for that right fit and right opportunity to show what he can really do. And I think he could be a really dynamic athletic piece for a team and hopefully it's us. But again, I think it sort of depends on what we end up doing with maybe our other forwards in that scenario.
Yeah, KJ Martin, I have had a love affair with for the last 2 years. I just think that he could, to your point, just give us that burst and speed that we need in transition. He's also a really good rebounder for a guard. I would kind of fashion him as our version of like a Dollar Tree Josh Hart. He's also improved tremendously defensively on the defensive end of the floor as well. He can hit an outside shot, but most of all, he is like explosive athletically. He's like a guard who you can lob the ball to, give alley oops to, but he is also just a blur up and down the court. And I think the Lakers just need that shot of explosiveness and dynamic athleticism in their arm so that we can, fight fire with regards to some of these other younger teams who have like true legs, young legs on the roster. Now, what about a guy like Josh Okogie and Cody Martin, who have had flashes with different teams, some competitive teams as well? I think Cody may be too injury prone recently and maybe on the tail end of his career, but I kind of am interested with Josh Okogie because when he's been healthy, he has been sort of that like Bruce Brown point of attack hound that like a team would want.
Yeah, Josh Okogie, I think is interesting. He does play defense. The perimeter shooting, I think he's had. I can't remember what his numbers were like this season. I thought at least in the beginning of the season he had like improved a bit.
With the Suns, he was hitting a lot of threes, but it's up and
That's
down.
right. That's right. So, that's the concern there. But yeah, he's a solid player too.
Yeah, so yeah, I would be interested mainly in KJ Martin and Josh Okogie, and then yeah, if Jock Landale is available, it never hurts to have like a garbage man type big who will hustle and do all the gritty, dirty work stuff. Okay, one guy who is non-guaranteed for next season is Jonas Valanciunas. So he's not a free agent this season, but since he has a non-guaranteed contract in 26-27, he's essentially an expiring contract. So would you try and trade for Jonas Valanciunas again if it, let's say, takes just Gabe Vincent, or at this point is there too much of a an opportunity cost if we're using one of our expirings to just get a middling big like Jonas Valanciunas?
So a middling big generally, maybe not an opportunity, a loss of opportunity cost, issue for us. I think Jonas Valanciunas specifically, he's solid. Don't get me wrong, but it's sort of like, and this is going to be a bad comparison because they're very different players despite the way they look, but it's sort of like the Alex Len problem. Like he has as many issues as he
He's
sort of
not that bad.
solves. Yeah, I mean, he's obviously not as bad as Alex Len, but he does sort of create he solves some issues, but he also creates issues. And I think you could get a maybe quote unquote worse player. If you're speaking broadly, like in terms of NBA 2K rankings, like across the board, maybe a guy's worse. But I think there's a specific archetype we want around Luka, and I don't know that Jonas exactly fits that. Maybe as a backup, but I don't know that we want to burn one of our expiring contracts on a backup center. So we can probably address that in free agency.
Yeah, if Jonas was a free agent, then yeah, maybe give him a portion of the taxpayer MLE or get him on a veteran minimum. But yeah, I wouldn't expend the limited assets we already have on Jonas Valanciunas. All right, now let's move on and talk about some player option guys. Now, it's been said that LeBron's likely just going to opt in to his final year, which would eliminate the possibility of opening up the non-taxpayer MLE unless Dorian Finney-Smith opts out and walks. But for now, let's just, I don't know, keep that option slightly open, understanding that the taxpayer MLE is still likely our biggest spending tool this summer. But what are your thoughts on some of these player option guys who could opt out? I'm not going to include James Harden for obvious reasons. Naz Reid, Bobby Portis, John Collins, who has a crazy like $26-28 million player option contract. So I don't think he's going to opt out of that, but I'm just adding him on this list. And then lastly, Chris Middleton. So Naz Reid, Bobby Portis, John Collins, Chris Middleton. I can pretty much take out two of these names for you because Chris Middleton will definitely opt into his player option, and then John Collins probably also. So really, what are your thoughts on Naz Reid and Bobby Portis? And do you think the Lakers could get them if they say had the non-taxpayer MLE?
So if they have the non-taxpayer, you could probably get Bobby Portis. I think Naz Reid is going to come in a little bit higher. Naz Reid is like an interesting player, I think, because he's in some ways he seems too good for the role that he's in, but then you see his like limitations exposed a little bit, like they've sort of been in this OKC series. And it's like, okay, he does give you a good enough bench rim protection body. And he is obviously an elite perimeter shooter, but so much of his value comes in that elite perimeter shooting and in the playoffs where, it's easier to close out on a big who you want to put the ball on the ground than like a wing player you are worried about whether they're going to shoot it or put the ball on the ground. Like, not, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't think it's a surprise that like in this OKC series, for example, Nas's production has gone down a little bit. And the tough thing is he's going to want like almost borderline starter level money. And so that makes it a tough fit for us. Bobby Portis, I think you can get in that price range, but I don't know that I want him. I think his defense has fallen off quite a bit from what it was during the championship year. At least that's what I've seen online, like, in terms of Buck fans wanting to get rid of him this year. So that one I'm not too sure about. I think the one comment I will make about John Collins is given his age and his contract, he's in sort of an interesting position. I wonder if he opts in, he's like wasting time in Utah, right? I mean that like from both parties' perspectives. So I wonder if there's an opportunity for, again, we would sort of require an NTMLE. We would have to be willing to hard cap ourselves at the first apron, but I wonder if there's some sort of like extend and trade, you know what I mean? Like options there where it's like he gets a longer term extension that Utah wouldn't be willing to give him. And then we eat the 1 year of high salary next year and then have him on maybe a more cost controlled deal moving forward. Maybe there's something with our expiring contracts that works there for Utah. I mean, we'd have to give them something somewhat attractive to do it. And I don't know, candidly, I'm not totally sure on the extend. I'm assuming the extend and trade is similar to a sign and trade where we would be capped at the first apron. If we're not, then maybe that makes it a little easier. But anyway, that was just a random thought because I've thought about John Collins a little bit, and I think there are scenarios this offseason where it might make sense to pursue that type of archetype.
Yeah, John Collins is a fun player, man. He's like super athletic. He can shoot the three ball. He rebounds the ball well. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what his options are, and maybe he just opts out for a longer term deal where he's getting that 3rd year guaranteed and still making more in the totality of that deal. Naz Reid and Bobby Portis, I would be okay with Bobby Portis, to be honest with you, even if his defense has slipped, if the Lakers end up trading Rui, because then Bobby Portis can be the Rui replacement, and then I don't know, maybe we get a center for whatever deal we ship Rui out in. Okay, what about middle tier player option guys? These are a little bit more realistic. Matisse Thybulle, Kelly Oubre, Andre Drummond. If they decide to opt out for longer term deals, would you be willing to give a portion of the non-taxpayer MLE or the full non-taxpayer MLE to any of these 3 guys? Andre Drummond, probably only a portion up to maybe the taxpayer MLE, but Matisse Thybulle, Kelly Oubre, Andre Drummond.
Yeah, the first two would certainly take the full mid-level, if not more. And then I think Andre Drummond, to your point, would take less. I would take all 3 of those probably around the same price points that you're thinking about.
Who do you like best out of those 3?
I I actually I say actually because this is going to be. I know you're on board with this. I think Matisse Thybulle. I think if you can get Drummond for the right price, like he obviously fills such a important need for us. I mean, offensive rebounding, we saw this season. I mean, there are teams winning just because they're rebounding. And it's crazy the rebounding intensity of the 4 teams remaining. If you compare that to like what our guys look like on the boards in the first round, like we didn't stand a chance. Like forget about Minnesota, right? I mean, and LeBron's injuries and all this, we would not have had a chance against any of these teams that are remaining just solely based on the way they're rebounding. And because of that, like Andre Drummond, fills a void there. He can do, his defense is and rim protection. It's not as bad, I feel like, as the raw numbers look. And I feel like didn't fall off as much post leaving us last time as I expected he would. He sort of like seems to have come into his own, and I accepted his role and where he fits in the league. And I think there's value in getting a big like that. So yeah, I would Thibault would be just a home run because I feel like he's the perfect like wing type of backcourt uh, piece you could put next to Luca, and then Drummond as well would be amazing.
Yeah, Drummond is literally one of the best rebounders in NBA history, like historically. His per minute rebounding rate is insane. And Matisse Thybulle, the Dallas Mavericks had the right idea when they signed him to an offer sheet to try and pair him next to Luca. Maybe the Lakers can do the same. Let's take it to break. When we return, just some outstanding ancillary weird contract stipulations, and then we'll end it from there. But before we take it to break, let's first hear a word from our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, because while they score buckets, you could score cash on Underdog. Underdog is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play now in your state. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog. Will you be next? To play, all you have to do is download the app and choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats. You can choose from things like points, assists, and so much more. Once your picks feel good, you can play with as little as $1. And if you get everything right, you could win up to 1,000 times your money. Personally speaking, I've been able to make a little more hay this playoffs because the games are much more concentrated and you can focus more on each series and contextualize heightened stakes for teams on the brink of elimination. So, why not join me and join in on the fun while you still have time left? Download the Underdog app and sign up with promo code LEGACY to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. That's promo code LEGACY. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Underdog Fantasy. Download it and play. All right, so we are back. Tommy, let's talk about restricted free agency and try and find the next Malik Monk, Lonnie Walker, in terms of a player who's set to enter restricted free agency if their team offers them their qualifying offer, but may enter unrestricted free agency if their team decides to rescind that qualifying offer. The Lakers also did this with Julius Randle famously in order to let him walk to the New Orleans Pelicans. And then the Lakers used that $9 million they had left over to sign Rajon Rondo. But here's the restricted free agency list: Quentin Grimes, Davion Mitchell, Day'Ron Sharpe, Zaire Williams, Cam Thomas, and Santi Aldama. Out of that list, who do you like? I'm guessing you like all of them to varying degrees, but who do you think is most gettable for the Lakers? And would you welcome them if they decided to take the taxpayer MLE or even a portion of the non-taxpayer MLE? So Quentin Grimes, Davion Mitchell, Day'Ron Sharpe, Zaire Williams, Cam Thomas, Santi Aldama.
I don't think we can get any of these guys, but the guys that jump out to me most on the list, and I think jump out to the teams that currently have them, which is why they'll probably keep them, are Davion Mitchell and Zaire Williams. I think the defensive intensity that both of those guys bring is very, very desperately needed on our team. I mean, Zaire Williams in the games we played Brooklyn this year, and I know you followed him just otherwise. I mean that guy at his size and his length, his ability to pick up full court. I mean, I was just saying 2 seconds ago, like the conditioning and athleticism of the teams remaining has been very apparent, and I think Zaire Williams is like one of these guys who he just never seems to get tired. I mean, he's picking up full court all game. I know he doesn't play all game, but he's just like that's the type of athletic and defensive intensity that our roster is like currently sorely lacking. And Davion, he's somebody, if you go back and listen to our trade deadline pods, I mean, he was someone I would throw out. I didn't think he was actually going to get traded, but I mean, like, I think his name came up multiple times when we were talking about potential trade deadline targets. And I would love to have somebody like that as well. The one hesitation there is his size. Um,
Mhm.
and he still needs to develop as a shooter. He's a very young player, but his defense, his ability to just cause complete chaos on that end, and then his playmaking has already developed a little bit
Yeah.
since his rookie season. He has like a nice career ahead of him. I don't think I think he got traded to Miami. I don't think Miami is going to want to move on from him. He seems like a piece that they'll probably hold on to.
Yeah, I agree with you, but we don't need Davion Mitchell, Tommy, because we've already got Bronny James. You forgot about that part.
Oh,
But yeah, Zaire Williams, I would love. Dayron Sharp, I would love as well, but I think someone's going to pay Dayron Sharp if the Nets don't. Uh, Interestingly enough, I actually think if Cam Thomas is relinquished from his qualifying offer, doesn't Cam Thomas feel like the ultimate Rob Pelinka play to you, a la Malik Monk, Kendrick Nunn? I'm not sure if he's willing to take the taxpayer MLE, but I feel like if he's let loose onto the market, Rob would make him his first priority. Don't you think?
it feels like something he would do because it's a way to use our limited resources on a exciting
On
player
talent.
yeah, a talented player who doesn't exactly fit any of the needs that we
Yep.
currently have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That would totally just like mind f our entire offseason jigsawing, and so which is why I think it's probably the most realistic, even if right now it doesn't seem realistic. Yeah, so that'll pretty much do it for this random episode of like riff-raff in terms of weird contract stipulations. There is one other interesting one with Duncan Robinson, who has an early termination option of $18 million. I think he has the right to terminate that in order to get maybe a longer term deal. Would you be interested in Duncan Robinson at all for either the taxpayer MLE or non-taxpayer MLE? I think I'd only be interested in Duncan if we trade Dalton Connect and we need the shooting.
Yep. And if he comes in at like a similar, I mean, he would get a raise presumably over what Dalton's rookie number is, but it would, to be very clear, it would have to be nothing near what he's currently getting paid, because
Yeah,
he's a little bit too situational. But I do like Duncan Robinson.
yeah, for sure. And then lastly, some club option guys. Fred VanVleet, $42 million club option. I think Houston's going to take that. Keon Ellis has an interesting situation with the Sacramento Kings where they have a $2.2 million club option on him. They're in a weird spot where they have to do the extend and trade thing too, or like give him that club option and try and extend him, but he can make more money becoming a unrestricted free agent next season, earning about 19 to 20 million a year. So he's probably out of the picture. The interesting one to me is Jalen Williams of OKC, who has a $2 million club option. Jalen Williams, he's 6'9" with an insane 7'6" wingspan, averaging 6 points, 5.6 rebounds in 16 minutes this season, hits threes, is long. So that would be an interesting play if the Oklahoma City Thunder, for some reason, let him off that contract. Although I can't imagine why they would, because it's only $2 million and below the veteran minimum. And then Josh Minnott of the Minnesota Timberwolves and Brandon Boston of the New Orleans Pelicans. They also have club options for very minimal numbers. I would be interested in them as like flyers. I think they're also two-way eligible at this point. But otherwise, this is just like random younger upside flyer stuff that I don't think the Lakers will necessarily concern themselves with. But yeah, that does it for this random episode of all the caveated contract guys in free agency who might not even be free agents. But yeah, with that said, Tommy, I will catch you later.
Peace.
See ya.